When I was in grade school, we lived on Orange Avenue in Azusa. It wasn't until I started junior high school that we moved to Covina, to the Storm House. Orange Avenue wasn't the nice side of town. The houses were older, closer together, and carried the weight of too many stories. Ours was old too, but it was clean. Immaculate, actually. My mother was raised with the belief that cleanliness was next to godliness, and she took that to heart. No matter what else was falling apart, the floors were swept, the counters were wiped, and the house looked presentable from the outside. Behind our house, the next street over, was where Tess lived, on Sunset Avenue. Her house couldn't have been more different. The house was small and what some would call hammered crap. It was a small wooden structure that sat in the middle of what looked like a junkyard. There was a small trailer rented by some guys that worked at the welding shop next door. Old cars, piles of scrap, broken furniture, and things that had clearly outlived their usefulness but never quite made it to the trash. My parents made it very clear that I was to stay away from those people. That's how they said it, those people. Which in later years would make me laugh, realizing that it was my parents who were those people. Tess was in my class at school. How do you completely avoid someone you sit near, walk past every day, and recognize instantly? We weren't close friends, but we played together whenever my parents weren't around. We were acquainted in that quiet childhood way. Polite nods, shared spaces, unspoken understanding. Years later, after I left what I've come to call the Storm House in Covina, I drifted back to Azusa. It was the town I grew up in, the place where most of my memories lived. And I did what most people do who are homeless. I just walked. Up and down streets, through neighborhoods, past familiar landmarks, killing time and avoiding the authorities. One afternoon, during one of those aimless walks, I saw Tess. We recognized each other instantly. We talked, and she asked why I was there and what was going on. I told her the truth, which was not hard for her to believe. Living right behind us for years, she had heard and been witness to what had happened under our roof. When she realized I didn't have anywhere to go, she invited me back to her house for something to eat. That house had changed. It had become a kind of informal crash spot, a place where people stayed when they didn't have many options. As long as they could contribute something, food, money, help, anything. Tessa's family situation was complicated. Her father, Bill, had a medical condition that kept him from working. Her mother was sick, and Bill took care of her. Tessa's older brother, Chet, he lived there too. He picked up odd jobs when he could and helped keep things afloat. The first time I stepped inside that house, it felt overwhelming. There was clutter everywhere. Dirt, piles of things, a sense of chaos that never really lifted. It looked exactly like what it was, a house that had become a last stop for too many people with nowhere to land. So at my age, I became the help. I would cook when food was available and clean up as much as I could. The first time I walked into Tessa's bedroom, I was shocked. There was stuff piled up everywhere. So much stuff that there was a path that led through the stuff to the bed. That didn't last long with me there. In some ways, I was still my mother's daughter. Living there was easy. I could come and go as I pleased, and no one tried to become my parent. As long as you didn't expect to be fed, you were fine. By then, I had been gone from my own home for about a year. I had reached out to my mother at some point just to tell her I was alive and safe. I told her I was staying at Tessa's house, thinking that knowing that would help her to be okay with the path I had chosen that didn't include her. That was a mistake. One afternoon, Tess and I were sitting in the kitchen when there was a knock at the door. Her father looked through the peephole and said calmly, "It's the police." The moment the words left his mouth, my body reacted before my mind could. I ran out the back door. I weaved through the piles of junk toward the trailer at the back of the property. I scrambled up to the top of the trailer, then jumped to the top of the brick wall fast, hand scraping, heart pounding, and was just about to leap down on the other side when I heard Bill's voice behind me. "Wait," he called out. I stopped at the top of the wall. "It's just one officer," he said. "He says he just wants to talk." I was young, naive. I still believed that people in authority meant what they said and could be trusted. So I came back. Outside, a police officer was on the porch. He was someone my parents knew. He told me my mother was at the station and just wanted to talk. He asked me to get in the car. I walked to the passenger side and asked him if I had to ride in the back, looking warily at the metal screen between the front and the back of the car. It looked like a rolling cage. He laughed and said no, I could hop up front. I wasn't being arrested or anything like that. He made me feel safe and comfortable, which I now know was the entire point. The drive was short, about 10 minutes. When we pulled into the parking lot, I saw my mother standing next to her red truck. The moment we got out, she grabbed my arm and said tensely, "Come on, let's go." I pulled away, looking at the officer, trying to explain, trying to say there was a reason I'd left, trying to tell him I wasn't safe at home. I didn't get far. The officer shut me down instantly. He physically restrained me, shoved me against the car, and told me, very clearly, to stop talking, that I was going home, that I was going to shut up and be a good girl. In that moment, everything became crystal clear. This person wasn't going to help me. I stopped talking. Looking around, I knew it was pointless to try and run from there, so I walked around to the passenger side and I got into the truck. And I started planning my escape. We drove in silence, heading down Cerritos Avenue towards Gladstone Street. I asked where we were going. My mother answered that it was bowling league night and we were headed to the bowling alley. My stepfather was there, playing as if nothing was wrong. As we drove, my eyes were constantly scanning the street and my hand rested on the door handle. I had so much adrenaline running through me that I was trembling like a spring on the verge of snapping. She noticed my hand on the door handle. "Don't even try it," she warned. We stopped at a red light on Gladstone, waiting to turn left onto Azusa Avenue. My entire body was shaking. I couldn't go back. I knew that with absolute certainty. The light turned green. She pressed the gas, and I bolted. I flung the door open and ran, sprinting in the opposite direction, straight up Azusa Avenue. I could hear her screaming my name, but traffic had her trapped. Horns blared. Drivers shouted at her to move. I never looked back. I ran with everything I had, sticking my thumb out, praying someone would stop quickly. Surprisingly, someone did. A small truck pulled over, and the driver opened his passenger door with a smile. "Where are you headed?" the man asked with a grin. I jumped in and yelled into his startled face, "Just go! Go fast!" He didn't ask questions. He just stomped on the gas pedal and drove up Azusa Avenue as fast as his little truck would take us. He immediately asked where he could drop me off, and I replied with, "Just keep going, just go." He was obviously concerned with what he had gotten himself into and demanded that I give him a destination so he could drop me off as soon as possible. I asked him to drive to the Thrifties on Foothill Boulevard. He dropped me in the parking lot, barely slowing down before speeding away. I found the payphones and called Tess. Chet answered the phone. When I told him what happened, he said, "Don't move. I'm coming." 10 minutes later, he pulled up on his motorcycle. And once again, I escaped. If you or someone you know is in crisis, you're not alone and help is available. Call 1-800-786-2929 for the U.S. National Runaway Safeline. Call or text 988 for the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline in the United States. If you're outside the United States, visit findahelpline.com for local resources. If this story brought up difficult feelings, please reach out to someone who can help. You deserve safety. You deserve to be heard.